Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. I was going to say I'm your Sean. Same thing, but we have some really, really good news. So out of the Fifth Circuit Court in Texas, I'll keep this one pretty short because we've beaten this horse to death about the Mock v. Garland case. So first, let me preface this, that the Mock v. Garland case is the pistol brace rule. If you're not familiar with this, the ATF has proposed a rule, or actually changed a rule, that made a previously legal item, specifically AR-15, pistol braces, AK pistol braces, any of those rifle caliber pistols or larger framed pistols that you could put a brace on and it was legal for almost a decade by the ATF's own rule. Okay. They proposed a rule to ban these. There was no way, if you looked at their ruling matrix, they had a matrix that you could check and see if your brace was legal. There was no way that you would find one that was legal. In fact, that's part of what the ruling said today. So what happened was something totally unexpected. I don't have a very high opinion of our government or a very high opinion of our courts lately, but we have been winning. The 2A has been winning. So I digress. The case, Mock v. Garland, in the Fifth Circuit Court in Texas was vacated. What does that mean? It means that it violated the ATF had violated their rules, the APA, which, by the way, that's the Administration Protective Act, what it's supposed to be, or Agency Protection Act. What it's supposed to be is an agency can't make law without going through Congress. Okay? They can't change the rules and just make a law that instantly turns people into felons. And that's what came out today, is that the judge, give me a second, let me find his, because he's really cool. His name is O'Connor. So Judge O'Connor took this case, and this was after the ATF appealed and asked for a submittal ruling. And his ruling was vacated. And his grounds for this were twofold. One, that the 99 or 90% of, actually he said 99% or something, some high 90s number percentage of American citizens that had one of these couldn't figure out if one was legal. And there was no way to tell if it was legal because their standard of justifying that matrix that I was telling you about would arbitrarily be enforced. So there's no way for a legal citizen, for a normal citizen, to just, stay on the right side of law if you have one of these, even though you were legally okay, 8+ years, 9+ years ago. When they changed this, you became a felon. Okay, if you kept it. The next thing he said was that it violated the APA. Okay, that these guys, the ATF, which we know they do this very often, or attempt to, especially since Trump opened the doors for this. So this is one of the reasons why I have a hard axe to grind against Trump. I'm a kind of a single issue voter, and it usually is my rights. Okay. I'll still probably vote for the man because, well, a guy that kind of poops himself during a D-Day celebration is probably not the guy I want with nuclear codes. I advocate continually that we should try to work within the system. This proves that the system still has some people that actually are on our side and are actually willing to do what the right thing is. And for O'Connor to look at this case and see that the ATF, bar none, they went outside of their sphere of what they should do. They exceeded their authority. That's the words I was looking for. They exceeded their authority in a major way by arbitrarily taking something that was legal, for almost a decade, and saying, well, it's not legal now. The government can do that type of thing through agencies. Other than that, they have to go, when I say agencies, I mean the alphabet agencies, the FBI, the ATF, the NSA. All these guys have, I would say the EPA, even now that I was thinking about it, All these guys have these administrative powers. And when they are given so much power and it goes unchecked, you see these arbitrary rules start to come into play. You've seen the EPA, for instance, has a court case that's still being dealt with, I think, to some degree, that has to do with overfishing or fishing vessels having to pay for having enforcement agents on their own vessel. Okay? And it was deemed that was over, an overreach of what the agency could do. So the same thing happens with the ATF. First it happened with the bump stocks, whether you have them, like them, whatever. That went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it's about to go to the Supreme Court. That's where this case is going. The Mock v. Garland case, there's 5 cases that are all tied up together to go to the Supreme Court, or going to have someone from the Supreme Court be judged on, or to say they're going to accept it, or that the lower court's cases stands and this is gone. Okay, and that happens in August. In August, they're going to televise the last case that I believe is going to be anything to do with the pistol braces. So this is effectively the pistol brace rule. You are not a felon if you have one. It basically, the vacator verdict today made it like the ATF rule never existed. That this is now 100% legal. You don't have to be covered by one of those plaintiffs in the cases, so you don't have to be a GOA, an SAF, an FPC member. But all those good gun organizations are the ones that have raised those cases that have been lumped together. And with this verdict added to those cases, because this is part of those cases, it gives very weighted results in our favor. And what I mean there is, if one Supreme Court area district has said that we're going to vacate this is totally wrong, here are the grounds, those other cases that are being brought to the Supreme Court now have case precedents, in case law more specifically, to go on and say, look, based on this case, based on these findings, are these not true here? And when they go and do this, they're going to probably, based on the historical precedents up to this point, we live in very unsure times, that's the only thing I would say, that this could be overruled and dealt with finally. Okay? The language in that case where the total case of where they have the 4 different cases that they're bringing to the Supreme Court has some language in it that could actually make the NFA invalid in several places. And if that becomes a thing, Joe Biden's gun control scheme goes down the drain pretty rapidly. Because it has a language in there that there is no historical precedence in the history of the United States where an agency was allowed to make these cases or make these laws or without going through Congress, and that the definitions used by even the NFA for SBRs aren't valid. And if that's the case, that could invalidate the NFA. At least take the SBRs off the NFA. So all of you guys that went ahead and registered your gun, good on you for following the law, I guess. Bad on you that the ATF now knows you at least have one gun because you had to register it. And cool that you got a free tax stamp, I guess, for an SBR, if that still stands. But there's a potential that this is all nullified and done, and we're done with SBRs being on the NFA, period. And in reality, that needs to happen. If you look at the history of I don't know why I said it that way. The history of the NFA and why short-barreled rifles ended up on there, it was kind of an add-on because some idiot was like, hey, if we're doing this to shotguns, we need to do this to rifles too. And the length of the barrel became an issue for rifles because there was a ton of M1 carbines that were coming out that didn't make the length they initially said. And then they had to change it. So that is going to lend to that whole getting it removed in the future. At least that's my opinion. So great news today. You can celebrate a little bit if you have one of these devices. There's nothing you have to worry about, even if you weren't a member of one of those guys now. So in the 2A world, I guess this is a smoke 'em if you got 'em kind of moment. I think it's wicked cool. For once, we're winning, and I knew we were going to win in the Mock v. Garland case eventually. I'm still hoping the Supreme Court takes this case and rules once and for all that they can't make this type of law from the ATF can't. And that would be beneficial to us. It would shut the door that previous administrations have opened to this and make them at least try to go through the legal process where they're trying to pass bills. And as long as we keep the congressmen and senators very aware of how much they can be voted out, we're on the good side of this. Like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, be great.